Have you seen a UFO? If you have, and you just can't keep your mouth shut about it, there's a good chance the Men in Black may visit. Since 1947, we have heard tales of these mysterious figures who show up after someone who has seen a UFO or even claims to be abducted by aliens. Who are they? Where do they come from? Are they aliens? Black op government officials? What about alien hybrids who want to keep their existence secret? Today on Conspiracies is part 1 of our Men in Black episodes. Join us as we find out how the tales of the Men in Black all started. Greetings!
You got the look there, Jay.
Oh
my God, they're coming to get me.
There was a debate on whether or not I should get the white shirt with the tie and the suit.
Well, I was going to grab my sunnies, but I can't find them. So. But I did go black.
Yeah. So, welcome to Conspiracies. This is part 1 of our 2-part series, Men in Black. Today, we're going to be talking basically the history of the Men in Black, where it all originated from. Next week is part 2, where we're actually going to be looking at different claims and stories about the Men in Black with special guest Bobby Mack. Man, love me some Bobby. Chris was waiting for that one.
He was.
I enjoy talking to Bobby. Yeah.
Bobby.
So some things before we get started, a couple things I wanted to throw out there. If you check in the description, we've got our link to our locals page. You go over there and check that out. I don't know how the best way to describe it. It's kind of like a Patreon / Facebook / Twitter type of deal, where you can join the community, post stuff, and you pay for the subscription. Helps the channel out. We've also in there is also our new Redbubble store. Right now you can get a Hereticals sticker and magnet. We'll be working on some more stuff on that. So check those out. Those are new links in the chat there. But today we've got Jen. Hi, Jen.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm pretty good, actually. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah. Oh, no, so was I. I didn't like. This is the this is the interesting one because there's always an element of truth behind some of these things. Mm-hmm. Not all of them. I mean, some of them are just absolute drivel, but the element of truth behind this is that there were agents of certain federal agencies in the US who would go and see people if they thought they'd seen something that maybe was confidential or whatever else. And those people often wore suits and sunnies and things like that. So this concept of Men in Black does have an element of truth behind it, but sort of definitely got blown all out of proportion.
Well, it's funny as we'll find out next week. I don't want to give too much away, but as the stories progress throughout the years, the Men in Black start to change.
They do.
They do.
And they even went down to I mean, after the movies came out, the concepts of the Men in Black almost directly copied what Hollywood said they were.
Yeah.
It's like yeah.
So, in all of their different incarnations, the Men in Black usually have one main purpose: to muzzle witnesses of strange paranormal phenomenon. Did I miss something? No.
Which is a very interesting visual image.
They almost always wear black suits and hats with dark sunglasses, drive black cars, and arrive in groups of 2 or 3. Some describe them as one would an FBI agent, like Jen stated, while others recall the MIB as having strange appearances, sometimes with supernatural features like glowing eyes and strange complexions. It's possible that the story of the Men in Black, the mysterious figures that would become the subject of fascination in the UFO conspiracy circles and eventually may break into mainstream pop culture, can be traced back to one day, June 27th, 1947. It all possibly started with a man, a boy, a dog on a boat.
Yep.
So we're gonna dive right into the first story, the one that started all. The story is about Harold Dahl. I don't know how many of you guys know the story. I think Jen does. She looks all excited.
To be honest, Harold Dahl is not one of my big well-known ones, so I'm interested in this. I did know who was the first, and it was the the starting thing, but the full on story about what it was. I know that he was investigated by Albert Bender.
Yeah, that
And
Albert Bender.
This was a story that he told Bender that these people are.
And it just happens to be that Bender is their other story we'll be covering today.
Yeah,
because those are Dahl and Bender are the two main stories that basically started off the whole Men in Black deal.
Yeah.
So
you kind of get this whole thing of Albert Bender, who is a UFOologist who wants to investigate UFOs, goes and talks to Harold Dahl about his thing where he'd apparently been visited and quite possibly had maybe even been visited by some former police officer or something like that, because I think people report things, they go and check it out and whatever. But it comes out as a Men in Black, and then mysteriously Albert has this very, very similar story.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah.
All right, so. As the story goes, Harold Dahl was on a conservation mission on the Puget Sound near the eastern shore of Washington's Maury Island, gathering logs when he saw 6 donut-shaped obstacles hovering about a half a mile above his boat. Before long, one of them fell nearly 1,500 feet, followed by raining metallic debris, some of which hit Dahl's son, Charles, on his arm as well. Man, love me some Bobby.
What was that one for?
Just out of nowhere.
I don't know.
He's like, sorry.
Sorry.
Where was I at? Oh, okay. It also hit the family dog.
He's going to get visited by the Men in Black in a minute.
The family dog did not survive the ordeal. Poor dog. Dahl was able to take some pictures of the aircraft with his camera, which he later showed to his supervisor, Fred Chrisman. A skeptical Chrisman went back to the scene to look for himself and saw strange aircrafts with his own eyes. The following morning, Dahl was visited by a man in a black suit. They ended up at a local diner where the man was able to recount in extraordinary detail what Dahl had just experienced. The man said, "What I have said is proof to you that I know a great deal more about this experience of yours than you will want to believe," the man said. According to author Gary Barker's 1956 book, They Know Too Much About Flying Saucers. Dahl was told not to speak of the incident. If he did, bad things will happen.
And you've got to remember, this is 40, what was it,
1947, right around the time
of Black Ops and Blackbird development and things like that.
Roswell.
Roswell. But I mean, not just that. You've got Skunkworks or various organizations working on Black Ops planes. That people aren't meant to know about. That they're experimenting with these things, and there are accidents that happen. So you see something, your dog gets killed, and you have bits and pieces land on you. It's quite likely that somebody who's a suit from the Air Force is going to show up on your door. And say, "Hey, don't talk about this."
Sandy
says
it hit. Yeah, Sandy said it hit someone's arm. Yeah, it was his son Charles got hit in the arm.
Yeah.
But while contactees offer a rosy picture of the UFO phenomenon, other darker visions have obsessed some saucer enthusiasts. In fact, even contactees agree that all is not well. Sinister forces oppose the Space Brothers' benevolent mission. Some of these are extraterrestrial and other terrestrial, and they work together to thwart the emergence of truth.
Doesn't it just sound like something a flat earther would say?
Well, there's not a whole lot. I mean, the mindset of a flat earther and a UFO conspiracy and a whatnot.
Blacker.
there's the same. Well, basically any conspiracy theories, it's the same mindsets. A lot of people will look and see what's not there, or they'll read and completely misread what they've read or seen. So, I mean, it's a lot of stuff you got to remember. A lot of this you got to take with a grain of salt, except for the one story we're going to talk about tomorrow. I mean, next week.
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean, it is very much a case that if people did actually see something, especially in the 50s or something that they weren't supposed to see, and they lived near an area where there were planes being tested or something like that, probably an Air Force official or a suit from somewhere would show up and just, have quiet words with them. And anyone sees that, you go, oh, Men in Black. Well, yeah, they wear dark suits.
Yeah.
It's not unusual, especially if you're talking about lawyers in dark suits. Yeah, you're not going to talk about this.
Yeah, like you need to keep your mouth shut.
Shut. Yeah. So, I mean, that's not unreasonable, but is it UFOs? No, of course it isn't. It's something else.
Maybe. So we're going to go into was probably the most famous Men in Black story. It's the Albert Bender of Bridgeport, Connecticut. This is the one Jen knows a lot of. She's like all excited, and you should have seen her in the back.
You can tell it. You've got it written.
Yeah, the Bender. All right, well, I'll just get into this. Amongst the early victims of the evil silence group was Albert Bender of Bridgeport, Connecticut. In 1952, Bender formed the International Flying Saucer Bureau, the IFSB, which met with immediate success. Excuse me. But he shut it down the next year under mysterious circumstances. In due course, Bender confided that 3 men in black had appeared to him in terrifying... I can't read today. And imparted to him the terrifying answer to the UFO mystery and turned his life into a nightmare. He would say no more. 3 years later, an IFSB associate, Gary Barker, wrote a book about the episode, and the title perfectly captured the paranoia of the UFO land. They knew too much about flying saucers. Though the Bender mystery, the legend of the Men in Black, came into the world, even though, as Barker observed, the Men in Black had played villainous roles in the Maury Island incident. According to Barker, the MIB were ranging. Bleh, I can speak. I really can. As far afield as Australia and New Zealand are still scaring some UFO buffs into silence. I can't read today. Good Lord.
You wrote it.
I know I wrote it. I still can't read it. Now, the big thing with Bender, though, Bender, the 3 men visiting Bender weren't the first men in black to visit him. When he first published his first article in the IFSB, he was
I think, early 50s, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like early 52. Yeah, it was in 52. So when he formed the IFSB and published his first few articles, he was actually visited by a man in black who gave him lots of information, verified stuff for him. So he was getting this stuff from the Men in Black firsthand. It wasn't until later when he posted something the guy told him not to post is when the other 3 showed up and like, you're done. It's like, enough's enough. You're putting too much out there. You can't be posting. You can't be writing all these things out. One of the things that Bender did, like Jen said earlier, was he made the doll story quite famous. It was through his IFSB publications that the doll
that got known.
Yeah.
He gave doll a voice. So
yeah, there you go. He gave the doll a voice. He also brought to light the good Lord.
It's not working for you today, is it, Jay?
It's not. The brain is not working. The very first alien abduction, Benny and Barney Hill.
Oh yeah.
He brought that into light because that was.
I mean, he was really into it. He went all over the country, interviewing people and talking to them and writing down their stories. I mean, a lot of the early stuff is directly related to him, about if anybody knows about any of these people who had stories, which isn't of itself a good thing. It's good that we have people documenting people's stories, even if I don't believe a word of any of them. Yeah. But it's still good to have these things, and we've had some great science fiction out of it. I can't deny that.
Yeah. Now the thing with Bender is he went on virtually said gently. Jumpstart the brain today. So in the late 80s, the MIB tales had become significantly ubiquitous to the to the August Journal of American Folklore, and they took note of them in a long article. Just who the MIB were remained unclear. To sources enamored with conspiracy theories, they were the enforcers of the Silence Group, associated with international banking interests that sought to trifle the technological advances and moral reforms of the Space Brothers wanted to bestow on Earthlings. To others, they were alien beings, perhaps some speculated Shavers Duros. Now, there's a couple names that popped in there. Shavers Duros, Space Brothers, the Silence Group. Looking into those, it all falls under the mysterious they.
They.
So,
The mysterious
they. There's not much. It just happens that those groups just happen to deal with so-called extraterrestrial stuff. So
you also get into this mix the guy who was, I know, completely forgotten what his name is, whose big claim to fame was he said he worked at Area 13 and
Area 51.
Sorry,
Area 51.
Yeah, Area 51. Area 13. What am I going on about?
Yeah.
Area 51. I used to work at used to work at Area 51, and I had these MIT qualifications, etc., etc. And there's just no record of him ever having any of the qualifications. He said, he did work there. I think he was a janitor or something.
Bob Lazar.
Bob Lazar, yes. Yeah. Thank you. Because Bob Lazar sort of, because he was a big name for most of these UFOologists and everyone, because, he was there and he'd really seen it and he'd signed non-disclosure agreements and he'd be behind bars now if that had been the case, but that's not the point. He sort of confirmed this by saying, there were government agencies that went out and made sure people didn't talk about this stuff. And so, they all go, Bob Lazar says it's true, so it must be true.
Yeah. Well, he says he worked there. Yeah.
Yeah, he legitimately said he worked there.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's no evidence of that. So if he worked there, he worked in a not a very big position and didn't have access to anything. He also didn't have the qualifications he said he did either. He said he was an engineer and everything, and he had a community college degree in electronics, and that was it.
Now there is a conspiracy theory out there that the Men in Black went through and scrubbed all his records.
Yes, I've heard that. Yeah. Well, he also started that. He said that they must have this clandestine organization must have scrubbed his records if you can't find them, because I definitely work there. So conspiracies within conspiracies within conspiracies. Yeah. The fact that no one remembers Bob actually working there.
Yeah,
probably. But they have those neuralizers, don't they? So they could have just...
the little flashy things. Look right here.
The little flashy things, yeah.
I just want to use a noisy cricket.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the noisy cricket.
So, breaking his 9-year silence in Flying Saucers and the Three Men, which Bender insisted was not a sci-fi novel, he revealed that the Men in Black who drove him out of the ufology were monsters from the planet Kasich. Even Barker, the book's publisher and relentless Bender promoter, remarked privately and out of the customers' hearings that it may have all just been a dream.
Yeah. Lucid dreaming is a thing. If you get yourself so wrapped up in these conspiracies and things like that, you could have a lucid dream that you think is really real. And it's just not. And he was so worked up in what he believed. He really was. He was. Oh
yeah, he was completely 100% freaked out by his meeting with the three men.
No. To him, it was real. To him, it's not like he was. Oh, I'm lying. He convinced himself all of this was real, and then believed wholeheartedly that his interactions with these Men in Black was real. And my guess is possibly his first interaction was, and it was probably somebody trying to get money from him. You get a guy show up in a seat and go, "Hey, I'm going to hand you all these secret documents if you pay me some money." So yeah, I mean, you find a nut job and that you can whittle money out of, people will do it. People have no scruples.
So Fear of the Men in Black is generated in part by worries about the possible hostile motives of UFOs. In a popular early book, Flying Saucers on the Attack by Harold Wilkins, 1954, fretted that a cosmic general staff could even now be plotting a real-life War of the Worlds. But next to demonologist slash UFOologist John A. Keel, author of UFOs, Operation Trojan Horse, 1970, and other writings, Watkins sounded like an optimist. In Keel's rendering, UFO intelligence are not simply extraterrestrials, but ultra-terrestrial entities from unimaginable other dimensions of reality.
Oh, that's what ultra-terrestrial is. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, when I was writing that down, I'm like, what is he saying?
Yeah, you know what it is? They've been watching too many Sliders.
I was thinking Fringe.
Oh, Fringe, yeah. Fringe,
Yeah,
Sliders, or even the there's a couple of other ones where they have things like that.
Yeah, the Watchers and whatnot.
The Watchers, yeah, where you have like the Watchers and stuff. So
I need to rewatch Fringe. It's been a while.
it's been a long while.
That's a good show. But with any UFO story, as we'll see next week, there's almost always accompanied with some type of Men in Black. If it's
post, it has to be post. It has to be about post 57. So I mean, aside from aside from Dials, it kind of has to be post 57 when Albert sort of made it popular that there'd be Men in Black. So a lot of them do after you get past him, sort of getting it out there to all the other UFOologists.
The more you speak about it is what I was talking about.
The more it is, yeah. That's what I meant too. Like you don't really hear about it. You get Dahl's one, and then you get Albert's one, and he pushes it, and it comes out in all his stuff. So by the time that he's really talking about this, not just then you start. So you got to get into the 60s more or less when he's got over his fear of it, and he's starting to talk about it, and then people go. So from about the early 60s, about 63 onwards, is when you start getting it. Oh yeah. Somebody's had this big interaction with a UFO, and now they've seen a Men in Black.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. Was it the 60s and early 70s were huge for Men in Black sightings.
Oh yeah, they were everywhere.
It seemed like they were everywhere, but at the same time, UFO sightings were everywhere during the late 50s, early 60s, and whatnot. The
interesting thing about UFO sightings is, of course, that if you go back prior to Hollywood and talking about spaceships and us actually having a space race and things like that, most UFO sightings don't talk about little green aliens. It's like celestial beings or something like that. It's funny in your culture is what you see.
It's funny because just like Dahl, the first incarnation of little green men, or as we're come to know them now, was Benny and Barney Hill. From the really early 60s. That's how they describe the aliens. And then now all of a sudden, Gray, not green.
Grays, yeah.
But now it seems
and then of course that was elaborated on with the Roswell incident by people saying, the aliens that they found were gray. Although there is no actual record of them actually ever finding aliens, but it became part of the mythos of it.
Yeah, it's the whole mythos and whatnot onto it. But with Benny and Barney Hill is how we got the little gray men with the big eyes and the not talking and the no lips, which eventually falls down into what people believe are the alien human hybrid Men in Black. Because as the story of the Men in Black progresses, the more alien-like and the more
they stop being men who come and visit to warn people off. They start being very pale-faced with large eyes and no hair.
Some of them no lips, some of them glowed.
Yeah.
There's one incident, I can't remember the name of it. It was a male and female come to talk to somebody, and they were sitting on the couch, and they were getting up to leave. And they couldn't figure out how to get around the coffee table.
Oh, the Men in Black people couldn't.
Yeah, the Men in Black were stuck until one of them realized he could just walk around it.
The crazy thing about that is that if you've got these hybrids who are supposed to be hybrid human aliens and they're supposed to be really intelligent and everything, why would they be stuck by a coffee table?
Yeah, that was kind of my
It
thought.
just makes no sense at all.
All of this, and you're stuck because you can't figure out how to walk around the coffee table. But the theory is, with that story though, is those bodies are suits, and the actual entities that are in the suits can pass through solid objects.
So they don't have to worry about moving around things, so they don't get it.
Yeah, they weren't used to being in a physical form where they could, had to walk around stuff, which is odd because they showed up in a car, knocked on the door, went in and sat down on the couch, but they couldn't get up and figure out how to walk around the coffee table to get off the couch. They had to go around. So yeah, some stories you hear are just 100%. You're just going, you're full of shit.
Yeah, you're full of shit. But then you've got other ones. For example, you've got Dahl's story, which is most likely he had someone attached to the Air Force show up on his door because he saw something that he wasn't supposed to see. There's Sims, that's exactly.
There's Sims.
Yeah, and then you've got Bender, who of course believes everything he's read and seen, and he's an ardent believer in all the aliens and everything, and he believes all the story he's heard from Dahl. So he's got himself so worked up that when he encounters something a little bit different, especially as he's had this previous experience, it scares the hell out of him. So it was everything that he had was probably innocent too, and he was just dragged along by his own paranoia.
Yeah. Another Men in Black story that's early had to deal with not Ben and Barney. There was one, I can't remember the one that was just right after Ben and Barney Hill, where they showed up, and what was it? The dog completely freaked out before they. No, that wasn't it. I think it was Bender. Actually, is the one I'm thinking of. Where he got a phone call, and the guy said, "We need to talk." And Bender was like, "Okay, we can do it now." And the guy said, "All right." And he goes, "I'm coming up your driveway." And Bender went to his door, and he's coming up his front steps. Now, this is before the time of cell phones, so there was no way the guy could have got from somewhere else to his front door in the time it took Bender to get from his living room to his front door. But once again, we only have Bender's account for it.
And aside from that, we're saying it's before cell phones, but not before you have radios and stuff like that. And if you're talking military personnel coming to see him or FBI, they could be radioing back to the base, and the base is patching the phone call through to him before somebody shows up. So so even if you allowed that somebody actually did show up on his doorstep for whatever reason, it is actually still possible to do that, even if it's before mobile phones.
Yeah, like what's his face calling the moon and the moon landing. Yeah.
It's because you can patch one thing through to the other, especially if you're a government agency or something like that. That's not to say it was a government agency who came and saw him. It could have been somebody who knew what kind of conspiracy theorist he was and played an elaborate prank on him, because all you have to do is have the different person show up to the person making the phone call. And that would be fucking awesome to do to somebody who was so paranoid about it, because you could absolutely scare the bejeebers out of them.
So Crone, hi Ma, said back in the 70s, I got stuck in a corner one night. Has anyone checked to see how many of these people were high when they experienced aliens?
I love your mother.
Dude, she's fucking great. But yeah, it's like how many of these people are, because like I said, we're looking at the 60s and 70s, and we all knew what happened in the 60s and 70s. There was lots of drugs.
Oh, yeah, there was heaps. Well, there's still heaps of drugs. And I mean, we don't know. We don't know if Bender was on a bender.
Yeah, Bender could have been on a bender.
Yeah, Bender. And I mean, even if not illicit drugs, alcohol can make you drink enough alcohol and you believe weird things.
Lots of booze, yeah.
I mean, it could even be a coincidence. he gets a prank phone call from somebody saying they're coming up the driveway, and he walks outside and somebody's at his door. Pure coincidence, but it would freak you the hell out.
Yeah, it would be
And
like
coincidences happen all the time.
nowadays. If somebody did that, you kind of half-assed
You're on a
expect
cell
them
phone.
to be right there.
Yeah.
because the cell phones. But yeah, back
Whereas-
then,
But,
yeah, that would have
like I said, it doesn't even have to. It's a bender on a bender. Yeah, I mean, back then it doesn't even have to be that. There are so many logical reasons for this. But if you're stuck in this in this way of thinking, and you've already had an like he's. I don't deny that he possibly sat down with somebody at some point and they gave him some information, whether it was made up or whatever else it was, and he goes, yeah, okay, cool. It could have even been somebody in the military talking about weird things that have happened and stuff. I mean, there was the Project Blue Book, which did actually catalog stuff like this. And, somebody in archives could have quite easily suited up, met up with him and handed him over some Project Blue Book stuff. And then people get to know that he's a bit of conspiracy theorist and want to play jokes on him and stuff like that. And everything can have a logical progression. But in Albert's mind, it's all the same stuff. And for him, if you were him in that situation, it would scare the absolute bejeebers out of you. So I totally get him thinking, even if it was just three guys showing up as another prank or a lucid dream or whatever else, at that point, he's going to panic about what's going on. And it could take him years to come down from it because he thinks his life's in danger, as you would during the Cold War when everybody thought there were Reds under the bed or there was somebody out to get them and everything else. I mean, people lived on edge. It's why the hippie movement grew, because we needed to chill out.
So I want to read something here. This is from Air Force Officer Edward J. Ruppert in 1956. He says the whole Maury Island mystery, which was dolls, was a hoax. The first and possibly the second best and the dirtiest hoax of all in all of U.S. history, UFO history. The majority of the writers of saucer lore have played this sighting to the hilt, pointing out that their main premise, in fact, that the story must be true because the government never openly exposed or prosecuted either of the two hoaxers. This is a logical premise, but a false one. The reason for the thorough investigation of the Maury Island hoax was that the government had thought seriously of prosecuting the men. At the last minute, it was decided after talking to the men that the hoax was a harmless joke that had been mushroomed, and that the loss of the two lives in the B-25 could not have been directly blamed on the two men. Now, what that means is that actually what happened was there was, like I said, there was a crash of a B-25 at Maury Island where two pilots lost their life. So that was why the men in black came to visit Doll. That's the official,
which is basically what we said it probably was. There was probably actually a real thing that had happened, and they had to officially go and see him, which is fair. But if you're Dahl, you might not exactly know why they're coming to see you if you had no idea what was really going on.
Yeah, because you didn't know.
Especially as these people aren't going to be able to talk about the secret plane that they're working on and stuff like that. So they're all like, well, we're from the government. You can't talk about this. The men in black are trying to oppress me. And he wouldn't have even said that. It would have just been a case of some suits from the government came to see me and told me to be quiet about this. It's pretty much all he would have got. And it's basically the story he told Bender. But it grows. These things always grow because people want the bigger and better story. So then you start coming up with the mononyms like Men in Black and things like that. So it's
hang on, I was just looking up something here. Yeah, no, it was nothing. One oddball thing was Albert Bender in 1965 created the Max Steiner Music Society. Actors John Wayne, Fred Astaire, and Vincent Price were all members. Now, what I do want to bring up, and I didn't look too much.
Fred Astaire, Fred Astaire was actually a big believer in UFOs. So
yeah. Oddly enough, one of the biggest celebrity proponents of the Men in Black is Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
Dan Aykroyd has stated on more than one occasion that he has been visited with the Men in Black, and that he's actually had a couple of UFO encounters himself. He actually had a show. I can't remember the name of it right offhand.
Oh, yes, he did. Oh, what was
He
that
had a
called?
show. He was supposed to be interviewing a couple ufologists about what they had seen, and before the show was supposed to start taping, it was mysteriously canceled. About an hour after he seen a man in a black suit with a black fedora and sunglasses standing across the street from watching him as he went into the studio.
Yeah, I remember this story.
Yeah.
Ah,
It was just, and he walks in, and he's getting ready to do this interview that they've had scheduled for months, and then nope, we're done. We're shutting it down. No explanation was given to him at the time. I'm still not sure if they ever gave him a reason why. But the whole thing was just shut down.
Yeah.
And he's still, I mean, to
Well,
this day, he's still not very happy about it.
there is this counter conspiracy that for a long time the US government, especially with the advent of Project Blue Book, honestly thought that encouraging conspiracy nutters to talk about UFOs was a great way to distract the populace from looking at other things that they were doing.
Oh yeah.
As far as mystery planes and stuff like that. If you had somebody reported as a UFO, you could get away with it, and people didn't know it was happening. So the UFOs almost became this unconfirmed cover story for anything that they were testing or doing, and that. So yeah, it is in itself a conspiracy theory, because yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that the more deep things like that go, the more likely it is it's going to be uncovered and stuff like that. So you probably be by now see documentations that pointed to them actually doing this. You know, there would have been letters and there would have been messages in between departments about it, and we don't see that. So unless, of course, they were really, 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 really good at hiding it, which I can't see why they would, because that would just feed the conspiracy anyway.
Now, talking about hiding it, the U.S. government actually hid the stealth bomber for years, even though it had been cited and described many times during the testing.
They just denied it and let people say it was a UFO.
They said there's
they literally did use that for a cover.
They used it as a cover that these people are just wacky conspiracy UFO nutters, and there's nothing here to see. Comes to turn out that they were developing the stealth bomber. So with a lot of like you had said, a lot of people believe that the Men in Black are just government officials going, shh, you can't talk about what you've seen, it's top secret. But it's which those are more feasible to believe. But then you got the ones that, like we said before, with that look automatronic, or they look, no hair on the, it's like they're walking around with alopecia, and well,
I mean, I guess it's possible you had somebody who was an albino, who was a member of things, who went to visit somebody on behalf of the government at some point, and they went, holy crap, because you had somebody who knew about this, and then they could panic because you got the pink eyes and the almost translucent skin and stuff like that. And if they're wearing big glasses, you could go, oh, they got really big eyes.
Rage just brought up, been looking into the Black Knight satellite. Supposedly the theory is the satellite watched humans for 13,000 years. I know very little about the Black Knight satellite. But yeah, young Earth disproved right there, knock. But it is one that I've been wanting to look at, and every time I can never remember what it's called. Isn't it like an asteroid? Isn't that one of the big asteroids in the asteroid belt? Is that the one that they call the Black Knight? It's like the biggest asteroid. I don't remember right offhand.
Yeah, I can't remember it either, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of story now because we've got this new comet that's heading in our way, and it's the largest comet that we've got on record is heading towards the end of the solar system.
Is that Apophis?
Yeah, no. This is one that's come from the Oort cloud. It'll get in close enough to us over. Its closest approach is out near Saturn, but it's huge, so it should still have a fairly decent tail out at that distance anyway. But It's coming from the Oort cloud. So this is a huge one that's come in, and this is like
is that the one with their nickname in Wormwood? Because I've heard it too. Apophis and Wormwood.
Apophis has been around for ages. I think this one might be Wormwood. I can't remember what they've called it, to be honest. But this one is the same size as a minor planet. So you've got something the size of, you got this object coming in from the outer solar system that's like not quite as big a Ceres, but sort of just down from that. So it's going to be almost round because it's big enough. And it's going to have a lot of ice and stuff like that. So it should still be able to produce a reasonable tail and even out at that distance and everything. It's going to be the sort of thing people could pick up in binoculars and hopefully see. And it's huge. So if it was coming in really close, it could be an Earth destroyer, but it's not going to come in that close. But there's people going, this is Nibiru, or there's people just jumping on it now. And
it's Nibiru. Or that the alien spacecrafts are hiding behind it. Isn't that how the Vulcans showed up? Was they were traveling behind a comet when they detected the warp signature?
Yeah. But yeah, so you have something that's actually scientific that's happening, and people throw a conspiracy in behind it, because why not? Everything's worth a damn good conspiracy, because But in this case, it's really interesting because it from a science point of view, it's huge. It's not going to be that close for another 3 years, so we could technically organize whilst it's coming in as close as it does to meet it at some point with a probe, because you're talking about something that's never been into the inner solar system before, that's pristine. So to go and look at it, it's one way we could look at something that comes in from the Oort cloud that's pristine and do it. But I mean, we're not organized enough as a species to mount a mission to this. I mean, if any country does, it'll end up being China. It won't be.
It was funny because conspiracy theories that tie in with the Men in Black, the Hubble telescope with their computer systems going down.
Yes.
I jokingly posted, that it's the aliens blocking the signal because they're getting too close.
They get ready to invade.
I actually seen a theory that states that the aliens that are working with our government had shut down Hubble because it's getting too close to the mothership that's hiding just outside of our range.
Did they understand how far away the objects are that Hubble actually focuses in on? It's like out of range is like, you'd have to be 96 billion light years away. Beyond the range of where light can get back to us, sort of thing.
As you just say, it was just because the aliens had shut it down because it was getting too close to seeing where the mothership was hiding.
Though to be fair, their mothership's going to be really, really, really tiny, even compared to what an asteroid is. You might build one that's similar to one asteroid. We struggle to see asteroids. Then we're not going to see it even with Hubble, because you have to basically look directly at it and focus at that depth to see where it is. This is this thing where people see sci-fi and they go, long range sensors, and we'd pick it up and Hubble is out. No, it's a telescope. You have to point it at exactly the right thing and track it in exactly the right way to know what the frick it is. Otherwise, it's just this object in space, and you may not even see it then because things are tiny and space is fucking huge.
Now, going back to the Men in Black.
Sorry, we sidetracked.
There's another theory out there that there is an alien and his crew that are living in the United States. They actually have an apartment in the Pentagon. It's Valiant something.
And wasn't this an episode of Enterprise?
I don't know. I didn't watch Enterprise. Valiant John?
Valiant John.
I thought that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I mean,
Valiant Thor.
My whole problem with the whole thing, there's aliens. Of course, there's going to be aliens. We're not alone in this universe. It's too freaking huge. But it takes a lot of effort to get anywhere in space, even if they have better technology than us. And, we're just one little tiny planet that would be hard to pick up in the noise of the entire galaxy. The chances of any other species coming here, unless, of course, we've somehow managed to message each other first, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Valiant Thor was the guy's name. Or the alien.
Oh, yeah. Name. Yeah. Okay. Yes, now I know who you're talking about.
Also known as Stranger at the Pentagon is the theory. Now there is one of the conspiracy theories around that the Men in Black are actually members of Valiant Thor's entourage, his part of his space crew. Which is odd because everything you read about Valiant Thor is to make the Earth more livable, less destructive. When he showed up in the Pentagon, his whole thing talking to Eisenhower was to get them to stop with the atomic testing, stop with nuclear weapons. So
isn't that where they got the idea of the day the Earth stood still from?
Yeah, with Valiant Thor. And the Rage Bush, George Bush Sr. still alive and well and still leads the Majestic 12, which leads back to Valiant Thor. It was through Eisenhower and Valiant Thor that the Majestic 12 was created.
Yeah.
I think Chris is broken today.
Chris is very broken.
Not sure why we had a picture of Grumpy up there, but
maybe Chris is getting grumpy and he just doesn't have a grumpy picture of himself.
So yeah, the theories behind Men in Black and the stories, and my timing was off.
No shit.
A little bit. Like I love me some Bobby just out of nowhere, That was like, I'm in the middle of reading. What the hell? There was no Bobby mentioned. Man, love me some Bobby.
Wow, his timing is really off, isn't it?
It's funny because I gave him that intro. I gave him the lead into it.
Yeah, he did, and he wasn't with it at all.
So, anyways, what I was saying was, it's hard to feed through the bullshit on what is actually legitimate stories of Men in Black compared to what is complete fabricated nonsense, because there is no reason why the stories of men in black suits showing up and telling people aren't true. It's the ones where you start getting in. It's the ones where you start getting into the
weird stuff,
the weird shit.
Yeah, alien. I mean, I totally get that if you've seen a secret aircraft crash, you are probably going to get a visit from the U.S. Air Force, by some legal type in a suit.
Well, remember,
and it's going to be scary.
The Men in Black also, they're not just restricted to the United States. There's stories out of Australia, out of England, out of Russia. So the Men in Black aren't just compact to the United States.
I mean, one of the things of the Men in Black is that it's like, is this like another form of international police?
Yeah,
that, sit up there with like Interpol and that,
Interpol,
but more rather than Interpol and Hague, but more like a CIA version of that, but international. Not answerable to one particular country, maybe. But
well, there you go. Like Rage says, I think the Men in Black are real, but I think they're human and protecting new technology, not aliens, which is possible.
Which is what we went back to with Dahl at the beginning, which was confirmed that he saw a test aircraft crash, so he had a visit.
Yeah,
and you only have to have that happen a few times, and it does happen a lot. I mean, we know that these sort of things happen if people see things that they're not supposed to see, that lawyers will show up and say, hey, non-disclosure agreement, you're going to be quiet about this.
Yeah.
Here's a bit of money or whatever else or a threat or whatever else it is. So we know these things happen. So there is definitely a element of truth behind the Men in Black. I think you'd have to be crazy to say, oh, no, it's all bullshit. No, there is an element of truth, but there's also this huge element of fantasy of alien-looking people and glowy eyes or great big eyes and no mouths, and not knowing how to walk around tables.
So I want to share with everybody this website. This is the MUFON.com. If you guys don't know what MUFON is, it's an all-volunteer, nonprofit 501c charitable corporation and the world's oldest and largest civilian UFO investigation and research organization. There is a lot of stuff. If you can think about it, they've probably got an article somewhere wrapped up. I mean, I just typed in, like, I'll show you here. I typed in men.
At least they're not discriminatory.
I typed in Men in Black and got 150 different articles just on Men in Black.
Yeah, because there are so many of them.
Yeah, they're so. Yeah,
and I mean, the reality of it is probably a reasonable number of those actually had visits from people from various government agencies because of something they saw that they weren't supposed to see. Because countries do have things that they won't want people to see, and that happens in every country. So you will get visits, and usually they're in suits. You send the suits out to deal with it.
Yeah. To view any of the articles, you have to actually join the website. I haven't done that yet because I didn't know.
It's a very large paracetamol.
A what?
Go back up. It's a very large paracetamol.
Oh, this?
Yep.
So yeah, the MUFON is a good place to go for all your UFO Men in Black information.
Men in Black stuff.
Tom DeLonge's UFO encounter. I must have missed that.
No.
What
must have been on the page.
I said I'm gonna bring the page back up.
It wasn't the second one or third one.
You talk about the bald guy, Chris? Astronaut story, that Musgrave.
Hop in, Chris. You're gonna have to inform us.
You talk about this one here? That's Musgrave. Louis.
No, I think it was on your list when you did the search for Men in Black.
Men in Black. Yep. Investigation of Tom DeLonge's UFO videos.
Yeah.
So there you go. So yeah, like I said, there is so much. Yeah, see, to read the full article, you got to log in and create an account. Yeah. But I just haven't done that. I may at some point. I don't know if it costs anything.
Maybe that's one. Maybe that's one you should talk to Bobby about.
Yeah.
I'm sad. Well, hopefully I will be here next week and I can talk to you guys about my favorite one, which was the hotel.
The hotel one, yeah. I can never remember what it's called until you start describing it. Then I'm like, yeah.
The Shane Savard.
Yeah.
In Niagara Falls in 2008. And it is an unusual Men in Black experience because it was captured on video.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so good. So
yeah, it's a good story because everything they said they got backed up with video. So
yeah, not everything that was said was backed up with videos. There were descriptions of the people given by some of the. It's an interesting thing in the stuff we've been talking about compared to like somebody there was obviously visited by two men who were in black, who were obviously government officials about something.
Mm-hmm.
But the stories that the people who are the patrons of the hotel give back are interesting because they describe
creepy.
They described them as not having proper eyes and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And yet you can see these people walk in on the video and they look normal. Yeah. They're just walking in, but they very obviously came in. The timestamps match the times that everybody said. It's just the story got elaborated on when they were telling it, and a video footage was found later in the hotel security about it.
Mhm.
And
What's funny is 'cause-
it's obvious that there were people visiting for some sort of purpose to
Well,
talk to somebody.
I don't want to give too much away, but the people they were actually there to talk to wasn't even there.
Yeah, no, they weren't there at the time. They came to see two people apparently because they were asking
Yep.
for them, and they weren't there. They weren't there at all. But in this case, probably less likely, given the kind of situation that there was around this, less likely that they were a government organization, and more likely they were part of the mob or something like that.
Well,
because
there's people that
that's
think
how
they
that
were
one
actually. I don't want. They said there's people that think they're actually members of MUFON. So,
could have been, yeah. Even come to
So,
talk to them about
I don't want to
stuff.
get too much into that because that's a whole cool story
That's
for next week. So,
Yeah.
but that has been Conspiracies, Men in Black Part 1, some history on the Men in Black themselves, some little debunking onto it, some horseshit, and then some off the cuff stuff, science, because Jen's here.
Sorry.
Uh,
But I think what we've come down to at the end of it is that there is definitely, this is one of those conspiracies that I think even when Bobby's here next week, it's going to be a case of we all agree there is definitely some truth behind this.
Yes.
There is too much of this one and too many other bits of witnessed evidence and stuff like that. There is a whole heap of mythos and and storytelling that's been attached to it.
Yeah.
That has got ridiculous. But definitely there is a huge element of truth behind this one.
So I'm guessing next week is going to run a little longer than our normal hour, just because
especially if I make it as well.
Yeah, because there's going to be so much. I mean, I've got to brittle through, and I've got to find different Men in Black stories to cover, so that's going to take a while. I enjoy talking to Bobby. Love me some Bobby. So that's next week is Men in Black Part 2. We'll dive into some actual Men in Black stories.
Not that we didn't do that already.
Yeah, no, we didn't. Yeah, well, we pretty much just basically touched on the two main ones that started the whole thing,
and we talked about the starting of it and everything, and we've talked about the big one that we're going to go delve into deep next week.
Yeah,
which is that one's.
And then so make sure you catch us this Friday for Six Pack. Yeah. We have Steve McRae and Cheshire Vic will be joining us. It's been a while since we talked to Steve, and I don't think we've ever talked to Chesh. I'm pretty sure Chris mentioned we've never talked to Chesh on Six Pack, so that'll be interesting. I've talked to her before. I know Jen's talked to her before. I know Chris has talked to her before. We've never done it.
And never as a group.
Never as a group.
All the times each of us have talked to Chesh, it's all been separate. So
yeah, because I've talked to her. I've talked to her on was that? It was just Steve's whiskey night. Yeah. So
I talked to him on the Steve's. We did a Steve was doing a science maths discussion night with a big group of panelists, and I was talking to Chesh, and then I talked to Chesh afterwards about it.
So that's this week. So Six Pack this week with Steve and Chesh. Next week we've got on Conspiracies is Men in Black Part 2. I'm not sure if we've got anything lined up for next Friday yet. But the following week for Conspiracies, we're doing Our Lady of Fatima, also known as the mysterious of the mystery of the sun. That one's a cool one.
I love some Six Pack too.
Yeah. The week after that, on Conspiracies, we're going over the Vril and the Thule Society. And then I think, Chris, you want to pop in here for a second because I've got a question for you. If he can pop in.
This should be fun, yeah.
What cult do you want to tackle first? Because I think we should do that after the Thule.
Well, I wouldn't mind looking at the Raelians.
The Raelians?
The Raelians. They're fun.
Really?
I know a fair bit about them, so that could be.
It's surprising and scary that you know so much about them.
Yeah. I've got a checkered past. What can I say?
So after the Thule, we're going to look at Raelians. Well, see, I was wondering if you wanted to do one one of the off the wall ones, or if you wanted to tackle like Heaven's Gate, or
I think like Heaven's Gate could be a lot of fun. It's really bad.
Not
I say
for the
it to do a
people
lot
who are
fun. I
members
mean,
of it.
they're quite horrible, but it could be an interesting one to tackle. Yeah, look, it's you know what? I guess let's put it to people out there, and we might over the next few weeks we might sort of run a bit of a thing. Let us know. Maybe even once we've got we should have Patreon set up by the end of this week, and we've got locals. So if you want to jump on and let us know on locals what you think. There's a promo code for anyone to join. It's normally at $2 a month, but there's a promo code Darth Dawkins, so people can join for free, try it for a month, and let us know which one you think.
So there you go.
Awesome.
Check out our locals. Like I said, the link for that is in the description. Excuse me, along with our new Redbubble. You can get yourself a heretical sticker or a magnet. Those are limited time though. They're not going to be up for too long because we don't want those to. So those are limited time, limited edition ones because they were just a prototype. But we wanted to get something out there so you guys can see.
It's like a number one of a comic. You know, you want to get the first one because it's going to be worth more.
There you go. And then I think that's all. Do we have anything for next week's six pack?
We got Steve on this week.
Yeah.
Were we doing the all female one?
Are we? We possibly can. I'll get back to you, Chris.
The second annual. I don't know what it's called. Whatever Jen wants to call it, really.
Well, I'll figure it out. But yeah, I'll get back to you on that because maybe.
Maybe, okay. If not, we'll work something. I'll have something.
Well, it will depend on what ends up happening with Rob next week. So I will. Yep. I'll know that. I should know that tomorrow or Friday. So we should be able to advertise it by Friday. Yeah.
Too easy.
Cool. Yep. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming to Conspiracies and checking out our intro to Men in Black. Next week should be super fun. We got Bobby. Hopefully Jen will be joining us back again. Yeah. Jade said she's in, Jen.
Yeah, I know. I already knew Jay was in. We already had this discussion last week.
I said next week would Bobby for sure, possible Jen. Covering story. Man, love me some Bobby.
That must get really irritating.
No, man, love me some Bobby.
He's not going to let you talk now.
No, if I keep saying Bobby, that'll keep popping up. Yeah. Man, love me some Bobby. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining and coming to Hereticals. Thank you for watching Conspiracies. Until next time, be water, my friends.
Bye.